North Dakota State, a 13-9 winner over South Dakota State this past Saturday. I was there. I'm going to go through my game notes chronologically, and I'll begin with the atmosphere. I'd never been to the FargoDome, heard a lot about the atmosphere, and it lived up to the billing. When the Bison took the field for the first time, lights down, the fire flaming, that was pretty hype. And when Dustman missed that field goal in the first quarter, that place erupted. I have never heard an FCS arena, a stadium, whatever you want to call it, that loud. And I do think, and obviously they have a reputation for being loud, right? So it's not like this time was a one-time thing. But I do think there was a bit of extra spark in the crowd because for once, they got to play the role of the underdog. How many times in the past 10 to 15 years has North Dakota State been an underdog at home in the Dome? Probably had been a while, so I thought that might have added to a little bit of the enthusiasm throughout the night. All right, let's get to my notes. First quarter, 4th and 1, Jack's going to go for it. They sneak it with Chase Mason. They pick up the first down, flag, back them up. False start, and that was part of the story from the opening quarter to the very last drive. The flags, the just unforced errors. And I will say, we call them unforced, but I think the atmosphere that those Bison fans provided, they deserve credit for that because they absolutely affected that game, creating just ruckus around the field. So I do think they played into it. But the Jacks consistently shooting themselves in the foot. They do right there. Not only do they not pick up the first down, it's 4th and 6. They have to kick the field goal. They back them up 5 yards. Now it's a 52-yard kick from Dustman. He misses. The Jacks get no points, leaving points on the board as they did a few times throughout the game. Jacks had 10 penalties for 89 yards. Bison only 5 for 38. All right, Caleb Francel, man. That kid played a heck of a game on defense. Late in that first quarter, 3rd and 2, Cam Miller taking the ball right up the middle. Francel knifes in, cuts him down, keeps him short. And then the next play, Bison, they say, okay, we're going to go for it. We're at home. We can get 1.5 yards. No, they couldn't. The defensive line makes a stand. The Priest, again, making plays all day long. And I'll tell you what, when I watched the game live, I thought the defense played pretty well. When I went back and watched the replay of it today, no, the defense played very well. A very, very good defensive game from South Dakota State. Let's get now to the second quarter. I'll tell you what, Cam Miller, man, made throw after throw in this ball game. Drops a dime to Bryce Lance along the sidelines. It originally looked like a catch, but when you go back and watch it, yes, he got both feet down. He lost control of the ball. The ball hits the turf as he's rolling on the ground, so they correctly marked that incomplete. And then there was actually another throw in the second half where Cam Miller, I believe this one was to Harris, again, on the opposite sidelines. Harris couldn't get his feet in bounds, but Miller's accuracy is impressive. If he wasn't the favorite to win the Walter Payton Award before Saturday, he certainly is now without question. That kid played fantastic. All right, so a couple plays later during that drive, Miller hits Raja Nelson, 18-yard strike. Bison take a 7-0 lead. Jacks respond, and it's Chase Mason, 66 yards through the heart of the defense. At his size, with the way he moves, you cannot teach that. Now, this is way in the future, but when he becomes the starting quarterback of this program, if he even throws decently, if he's completing 65 to 68% of his passes, throws for a good chunk of yards, makes some highlight plays with his arm, which we know he will. He has a strong arm. He will get NFL looks as well because of the way that kid can move. You just cannot teach 6'4", 235 with breakaway speed. So that was a huge moment for that kid. We saw it last week against Youngstown State, but to do it in this game, on the road, trailing by 7, that was a moment. But suddenly, as he gets into the end zone, the entire scene is 5 yards behind him in the corner of the end zone, and it looks like we've got a brawl about to start. You go back and watch it. Look, Mark Gronowski tries to throw a block. Okay, he's putting his hat in the ring. He gets knocked on the ground and then tries to get back up, gets knocked down again. Evan Bernstein comes in, backs up his quarterback. I'm good with all that. I'm not complaining about one bit of it. If Mark's going to try and throw a block, that stuff can happen. And then the Bison got a little feisty with him, and his offensive lineman backed him up. So I'm good with all that. Offsetting flags, play on. That's part of the game, part of a game like this especially. Final drive of the half for the Jacks. Lofton Ogrowski, hope I'm pronouncing your last name right, buddy. what a catch on 3rd and 12. That's a true freshman, folks. Not only is he making that play, just to get into the lineup, to get into the game at that moment when the Jacks need points on the board, they trust him. That says a lot about the young man wearing 80 in yellow and blue. By the way, there's 2 other true freshmen on this team that are wide receivers that are going to be studs as well. The Jacks have a really good freshman class. Couple moments later, 40 seconds left, ball on the 40-yard line. They decide to run it with Amar Johnson. I didn't like that play call. Number 11 had been making plays with not only his arm, but his legs. Keep the ball in the hands of Mark. I didn't like that decision. The drive results in a Dustman 42-yard field goal, and I gotta say, Dustman deserves some credit. He bobbled that snap, he had a PAT that was blocked, he stepped up to the plate and drilled that field goal, and that was big. That gave the Jacks a lead heading into the break, and that felt important. Also, too, on his 52-yard field goal in the first quarter, that ball hit a few feet up on the post of the field goal. That ball would have been good if he had directed it correctly from 55 to 57 yards. That kid has a leg on him. I know he missed that kick, but I still took note of that. Quick story at halftime. I go to the restroom, got to take the elevator down to the 2nd floor, and I'm coming back up to the press box, and I push the button, the elevator opens, and it is jam-packed full of North Dakota State and South Dakota State coaches standing inches from each other's face. And I just thought it was the funniest thing. It looked so awkward. It was dead silent. These guys are in the middle of a battle. 1 versus 2. It's the Dakota marker game. And then for 15 seconds, they're standing face to face saying nothing to each other. That was a funny scene. Just thought I'd mention that. Let's go to the 3rd quarter. On the ESPN broadcast, I just rewatched it. Bob Clark been to 541 straight North Dakota State football games. That's crazy. Since 1982. I thought that was amazing. That was cool. All right, mid-3rd quarter. They give the ball to Chase Mason, kind of on a handoff, sweeping to his right. He looks like he wants to throw it, but he takes off running. He gets 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, then throws the ball. Obviously, you can't do that. If he just keeps running, he picks up probably about 9 to 10 yards. Instead, it's a 1-yard loss and a flag. Again, just another mistake that the Jacks made that was unforced for the large part. And Roger said before the game that this game wasn't going to come down to talent. It will come down to consistency. The Jacks were not consistent. They just had no rhythm, and they never strung together positive play after play after play. It was always something moving them back. Was the story of this ball game, at least from a South Dakota State perspective. And North Dakota State deserves credit. They do, because they played very well in this game. Late 3rd quarter, Bison facing a 3rd and 9. They're trailing by 2. Jacks bring 6. They dial up the blitz. Bach, he blitzes off the edge. He times it perfectly. Slings Cam Miller to the ground. That was a cool moment to see him get his high school teammate. But as we know, Cam Miller did get the last laugh, but a good moment for Adam Bach. 4th quarter now. 9:07 left to play. It's 3rd and 12. Jacks with the ball. The offensive line provides good protection. Gronowski steps into the throw, delivers a strike to Graham Goering. That was a good moment for the Jacks offense. But then 2 plays later, Davin Stoffel is running open. If Mark makes a good throw, that's a touchdown. He missed his guy. It wasn't the easiest of throws, but it was a doable throw, and he sailed it. And that really did cost the Jacks 6 points. Now, a play later, it's 3rd and I believe 9 or 10. Gronowski tries to run for the first down. There's a flag for, of course, holding. Knocks it back to 3rd and 17. Now they're out of field goal range. He's in shotgun. He's got to avoid the pressure. Gets out of contain. Gets to the sideline. Gathers himself. Gronowski launches down the field. And the ball, it appears, is caught by Graham Goering. Look, if this play stands, which I believe it should have counted as a catch. Wow, that is a staple in the legacy of Mark Gronowski. That was one of the best efforts I've ever seen live with my own eyes. Gronowski made an incredible play. Now, since the game has ended, we've seen pictures. Graham's foot was inbounds. Looked like a catch when I saw it live. And then when I went back and watched it at full speed, he catches the ball. He falls to the ground, still possessing the ball. And by the time his back hits the ground, the ball is knocked free. That was a catch. They did not say it was. They said it was incomplete from the start. And I was surprised that this play wasn't extensively reviewed. Several times throughout this game, there were stoppages to review plays. And they didn't do it on this one. Still find that confusing. But that was a moment that I did feel was almost stolen from South Dakota State. If that play is correctly called a catch, they're at the 2-yard line. They punch it in. It's a 9-point game. It might be over. It's incomplete. Completely new game for North Dakota State. So they get the ball back, and there's 7 minutes and change left on the clock. Cam Miller was just fantastic. He was great. I mean, you won't be able to talk about Cam Miller and his legacy for the rest of his life without talking about that drive. I believe he was 7 for 7, made several nice throws. One of the throws he got out of pressure, slings it over to Harris. It's a great play. So the Bison get down. They're at the 20-yard line. They're facing a 2nd and 8. Jacks have 2 timeouts, and I'm thinking NDSU is going to run the ball, trying to run this clock down as low as they can. Hopefully, in their case, pick up a first down, kick a game-winning field goal with very little time left. Not what they chose to do. They put the ball in the hands of who's been their best player in Cam Miller, and he delivered. Probably his best pass of the night. And he made a couple good ones before, but this one was on the money, again to his guy Raja. And Bison take a 13-9 lead. This crowd exploded. It was a pretty cool moment to witness that. And now they have the lead. It's 13-9. The Jacks are going to get the ball back, though, with plenty of time. 1:49 left on the clock. They kind of squib kick it. It falls into the hands of Angel Johnson. He takes the ball up the sideline to the 38-yard line. Wow, Jacks are going to have great field position. Nope, another flag. Knocks him all the way back to the 9-yard line. That's a almost 30-yard difference from yet another penalty. First play of the drive. It was a great call. A screen pass to Amar Johnson. It was there, and the ball went right through his hands. You go back and watch that play. If he catches that ball, he might pick up 20 to 40, if not more yards. There were green turf in front of him, but again, an unforced error. There was no defender there that caused him to drop that pass. Just went right through his hands. But the Jacks do start to pick up a little bit of momentum. They move the ball down the field, and then Kopp makes an incredible play. A great interception to seal the victory for North Dakota State. Actually, a pretty good throw from Gronowski. Just a better defensive play, a tip of the cap to that kid. So North Dakota State goes on to win this ball game, and I saw several tweets during and after the game complaining about the play calling, the lack of creativity. What was the scheme going into this ball game? I'm going to disagree with that. It wasn't the play calling or any of that. It was the lack of execution. When South Dakota State dropped back to throw the ball in this game, the North Dakota State defensive line outplayed the South Dakota State offensive line. They did. We talked about the self-inflicted penalties, shooting themselves in the foot several times, taking points off the boards, having to play behind the sticks. The players did not execute like they should have, period. Now, you can put some of that on the coaching staff. That's fair. But to say that it was just a scheme that had no real rhythm or design, I didn't see that. I didn't see that in person. I didn't see that going back and watching the game. The players didn't execute, and North Dakota State deserves credit for that. They got them out of sorts, out of sync, and South Dakota State didn't do their job. They weren't consistent. They weren't focused. They made little mistakes, and they added up throughout the game, and they didn't get the job done. So I disagree with a lot of what I've seen on Twitter and in person talking about the offensive game plan. This came down to me an execution factor. Jacks didn't get it done. As the game came to an end, I thought it was pretty cool to see almost the entire North Dakota State team sprint over to that rock. What a difference from a season ago in Brookings. When South Dakota State won, yeah, they went over to the rock, lifted it up, but it kind of felt like business as usual. Not on Saturday in Fargo. That was a big deal, and rightfully so. They hadn't won it in so many years. They wanted that rock. They took it back. And not that it's not a big deal in South Dakota State, but just different circumstances. When you get so starving just to feel that rock again, you can see the enthusiasm. So I thought that was cool. I like to say this. Now, this is years down the line. Could be 4 years, could be 6, could be 8, could be 10. But at some point, these two programs will jump up to the next level. Whether that's the FBS, whether the FBS gets chopped in half and they join the Mountain West and the Conference USAs and the MACs of the world, and they have their own level. It's inevitable. South Dakota State and North Dakota State will jump up at some point when the timing is right. And it's not right now, but it will be someday. When that happens, These two programs have to stay together. This rivalry is not only is it awesome, it's extremely important. I would argue it's part of the lifeline, the bloodline of these two programs. You don't want to hear it now because of the level these two programs are at, but when they do jump up, you're going to have those 5-7, 6-6, 7-5 seasons. You're not going to be competing for championships right away. You need a game that rallies the universities and the programs and matters. A game that you can measure yourself with. And that's exactly what the Dakota marker is. That game will always matter. I don't care if the teams are 3-7. You want to win that game, and you need that if you're going to jump up to the next level. So whatever they have to do, like they did when they moved from Division II to Division I, they have to stick together. I think that's imperative for both of these schools one day when they make the jump up. Saw it firsthand in Fargo, how much football means up there. I know how much it means in Brookings. These two schools, they're bitter rivals, but man, are they good for each other. South Dakota State, they don't get to the championships without North Dakota State pushing them, and it might be coming full circle as we speak. So, great game. Obviously wasn't high scoring and wasn't pretty, but it was intriguing. It was an intense game, and it was a one-score game the entire time. No team could separate themselves. I thought the Jacks would get a victory. They didn't. They have to regroup now, and they have to do so quickly. USD coming to town for another top 5 matchup. Kind of a shame South Dakota State couldn't get the victory. Was interested to see if they could get College Game Day to come back to Brookings for this matchup. Doesn't happen. Nonetheless, we still have a great game on Saturday. Fascinated to see how the Jacks respond to their first loss in the FCS against an FCS opponent in over 30 tries. How will they answer the bell? We shall see. But I do know one thing. The Coyotes will come into this game hungry. I expect them to compete. Looking forward to a game in the Dana under the lights this coming weekend.